Welcome to True Stories, a channel of wildly interesting stories, and today I'm going to tell you the story of how a wife cheated on her husband while he was in the hospital. Enjoy watching. Diane sat in the hospital room, looking at her husband's serene face. Sergei had been in a coma for nearly 5 years. Diana paid a lot of money every month to keep the man alive and take care of his body. She was already tired of crying and worrying. All that was left was a sense of guilt over her husband. After all, it was because of her that he found himself in this position. 5 years ago, the then newlyweds were returning from a restaurant in a car. Sergei was a young and successful businessman. He had loved Diana since the 8th grade and now did everything to make the girl feel most loved, desired and needed in the world. Diana also liked Sergei very much. He was so caring and sensitive. He had only one problem. He absolutely could not stand even an imaginary competitor. About such people they say, jealous even to a pole. For this reason, Diana hesitated for a long time before she accepted the young man's advances. But in the end she thought that maybe, over time, everything would be smoothed out. After all, the man is very good. The girl has never given serious reasons to be jealous. But Sergei managed to see some intimate subtext in everything. And now the man drove the new Mercedes very nervously. Sergei, Diana saw him clutching the steering wheel. Even her knuckles turned white. Something wrong? The bloody waiter, Sergei swore. He was looking down your cleavage. Oh, God, Diane sighed. You're at it again, Sergei. He was looking at the table to set the plate. Yes. Of course he was. On the table, I could see exactly where the table was and where his eyes were. Sergei wouldn't calm down. Damn kid, I should have explained to him that you can't stare at other people's wives. Sergei, why are you doing this again? Everything's fine. We spent a wonderful evening together. We are going to our own apartment in the city center in an expensive car. I love you, and will love you forever. Why are you being so unreasonably jealous? You even suspect the guards in the stores that I undress with a glance. Diana's patience was running out. She thought that after the wedding Sergei at least calmed down a little, believed that she does not need anyone but him. But no. He seemed to become even more suspicious, and Sergei readily confirmed her musings. That doesn't sound very comforting, he muttered. Do you think there are not enough maniacs? You're young, beautiful, blonde. After all, you're the ideal of their dirty fantasies. And sometimes you behave in a very provocative way. I do. Diana rounded her eyes and started screaming too. And when have I ever acted extremely provocative? At least today. Sergei slapped his hand on the steering wheel. Why are you wearing that dress? It's like an outfit of Eve. It doesn't hide anything at all. You bought me this dress, you idiot. Diana screamed. I bought it for you, so that only I could see you in it. And now I have to go out of the house in a burqa? No. You just need to know how to dress when you go out in public. And that's how you do it, honey, so you don't show your beauty in the face of a lousy waiter. You bastard. Diane didn't even think twice about smacking her husband in the neck with her palm. And it was so unexpected for him that he jerked, twisted the wheel, and drove right into the truck. Darkness, the hospital, a slight concussion and a fracture of the left arm for Diana, and multiple injuries with extensive brain hemorrhage and crushed pelvic bones for Sergei. Diana woke up the very next day. Sergei had not regained consciousness for almost 5 years. Diane had been kicking herself from the very first minute she saw her husband. She hoped that Sergei would soon wake up. She would explain everything to him, ask for forgiveness. If she had just kept quiet that day, or at least not hit him, everything might have been different. They could have been happy, perhaps they would have had children, they would have gone on vacation to the sea, had fun, talked to friends. But Sergei was unresponsive to anything. His whole body refused to come to consciousness. Diane cried at her husband's bedside for a long time, begged forgiveness, went to churches, prayed, searched for an alternative solution to the problem, probably would have found specialists from other countries. But in all this time she could do nothing. Sergei's business was with his maid, half owned by Sergei and Diana, half by his friend, Konstantin. He and Sergei studied at the same institute and even in the same group, so the relationships between them was one of trust. How ironic that it was Konstantin who came to console the young widow in the presence of her formerly living husband. At first, Konstantin worried together with Diana, came with her to Sergei. Then he reminded her that he had some business to take care of, and Diana's signature was equal to Sergei's. Diana understood everything. Business is business, of course. She tried to get involved. It was quite difficult, after all her thoughts were on her husband. Konstantin saw this and tried to relieve Diana as much as possible, often staying up late at work. When 3 years had passed since the accident, Diana left the hospital with her last visitors. It was raining outside, but the girl didn't even pay attention. She walked to the nearest bar, drank a few whiskeys, bought a bottle, and went to work. She wanted to be in the same building where her husband worked, to sit in his chair, to think about the same things Sergei was thinking about. Once there, soaked from the rain with her shoes in one hand and a bottle of whiskey in the other, Diana saw a confused Konstantin. "Hello," he said uncertainly. Diana could not answer. She immediately cried, "Well, hush, hush, I understand everything, I understand. You miss him. Come on. Let's go to his office and remember him. You can dry off at the same time." Diana just nodded in agreement. They went to Sergei's office. Konstantin somehow pulled out a blanket, with which he covered the shivering Diana, poured whiskey in her glass. The girl drank it and grimaced. It distracted her at least a little from the heartache that had been tormenting her for 3 years. "It's all my fault," she sobbed. "What? It's all my fault." She covered her face with her hands, pressing the empty glass to her forehead. "Oh, come on, Diana, don't be silly. It wasn't your fault. Sergei just couldn't control the car." "Aha, of course he did. He just lost control." The girl was in the middle of a tantrum. Konstantin took the glass from her and poured more whiskey in it, and drank it himself. "At the Macron, I hit him. That's why he failed to steer, as you say." "Diane, it was an accident. You have nothing to blame yourself for." Konstantin shook his head. "You don't understand anything. We were driving from the restaurant and he said the waiter was staring at me. Should have just kept quiet." "No, he didn't. I got into it. There, I found out." Diana burst into tears in her voice, and only a glass of alcohol managed to calm her down a little. Konstantin thought that if this went on, she would easily faint from intoxication. In the meantime, Diana held out the empty glass. "Diana," Konstantin sighed. "Maybe that's enough for now." "What do you mean, enough?" "I'll decide when I've had enough." "Well, think about it. Would Sergei would like to see you like that?" "Sergei? What did he want?" "What? I should be glad that I was a wife for only 3 months, and a widow for 3 years." Diana hesitantly got up and went to get the bottle. Konstantin went up next and tried to stop her by taking her hand. "What are you doing? Let go of me." "No," said Konstantin firmly. "What do you mean, no?" Diana burst out, and Konstantin pulled her toward him, opening her arms. "I don't want to watch the girl I love get drunk," said the man, pressing her to him. "Do you love? So you've been lying all this time. You were only happy to see Sergei in such a state." "Yes, you. Konstantin decided not to let her continue the thought and kissed Diana. At first she tried to push him away, then she sank into Konstantin's arms and responded to the kiss. It's not difficult to guess that's when it all began. That same night they slept together. "What have I done?" whispered Diana, holding her head and looking at Konstantin. "And what have you done?" He shrugged his shoulders. "Do you go on living?" "Kostya, my husband is still alive." "Diane, just understand that he won't wake up," shouted Konstantin. Diana stared at him with unblinking eyes. "Yes, it hurts to admit it, but Sergei's brain is already dead. You're just keeping it minimally active so the tissues don't die off. You just don't let him go in peace." Diana put her head down and cried. "I understand how you feel. I really do. I cared for him too. He was a great friend, always understanding, supportive, helpful. Come on, I'll tell you everything. The only reason I didn't tell you how I felt was because he'd already started courting you. You hadn't accepted his advances yet, but he had such a dreamy look about you that I just couldn't get in and spoil his happiness. And the truth is, I fell in love with you at first sight. And, mind you, in doing so, was able to be friends with the groom at your wedding." "Yes, Diana. Sergei was a dear friend to me, but he's gone. Do you understand? And you have to go on living. We have two. I don't think Sergei would be happy to see us like this. Kostya, I can't. I just can't. Diana was crying. I understand. So I'll give you as much time as you need, nodded Konstantin. It took Diana almost 2 more years to come to terms with the idea that her husband, Sergei, will not wake up. Konstantin did not express any thoughts about disconnecting Sergei from life support systems. The lion's share of the income went to various specialists who closely monitored Sergei's condition, but even they were already openly saying that there was no hope. Diana sat in the hospital room and watched her husband's serene face. It had been 5 years. He hadn't changed at all. Diana took his hand. He had lost weight. Yes, but it was still her Sergei. The girl's heart was bursting with pain. Her eyes became moist, even though so many tears had been cried out. Sergei. Diana coughed and swallowed the bitter lump in her throat. Sergei, it's been 5 years now. I don't know what to do. I do not understand. Everyone tells me that I make you hang between heaven and earth, that you suffer, and I suffer too. Forgive me, Seryoza. I'm very guilty before you. You are here because of me. I have been asking for forgiveness for 5 years, but you do not answer. Diana did not know what to say, so she was quiet for a few minutes, just stroking her husband's hand. I spoke to your doctor last week. He said there was no change. He almost hinted that it would be time for me to say goodbye to you. Seryoza. I don't want to do that. I'd rather be in your place. Kostya says we should move on, move forward, and I don't know who's right anymore. I love you, Sergei, but I've been waiting 5 years for you to answer me. I can't take it anymore. Are you suffering? I think you are suffering. I'm hurting you myself by not letting you go to the other side. Oh God. It's so hard for me to say. The doctor offered to let you go, and I already think it's the right thing to do. Give me some sign. The whole field of vision was covered with tears. Diana clung to Sergei's hand, trying to feel any movement, but all to no avail. Sergei remained an unresponsive body. Diana bit her lip and wiped away her tears. I got it. All right, let it be so. You go quietly. Know that I'm okay. Kostya will take care of me. I know, but you really wouldn't want me to spend the rest of my life alone, would you? I know you'd like to see me happy. He promised he'd make me happy. He said he wasn't you, of course, but he would try for me. Well, there you go. Diana folded her hands in her lap. I'll go get him. He would like to say goodbye to you, too. Sergei lay motionless. Diana kept her gaze on his face. No, nothing. The girl sighed, got up from the chair and went out into the corridor. How are you? Konstantin asked, hugging Diana. I still don't know, she answered with a sigh. I understand that everyone says there is no hope, and I don't have one either, and I want him to be calm, happy. I understand that it's wrong to keep him in this world by force. Do as you see fit. Konstantin smoothed her hair. Okay. The girl sighed convulsively. Go and say goodbye. I'll call the doctor. I got it. You're doing the right thing. Do as your heart dictates. Konstantin nodded and kissed the girl. I'll be there soon. Diana went to the resident's room. Her heart was beating anxiously. She's going to take her husband off life support. That would mean killing him. She killed him 5 years ago, and now she would just free him from the endless tossing and turning. Hey, Sergei. Konstantin stood next to the bed. He was quiet for a while. I know that you loved her in a way that I will never be able to, but I believe I can support her. To be your replacement, she'll be fine with me, but in a different way. Don't worry about her. Go in peace. I'll do anything, friend. And if you suddenly hate me and can't forgive me, we'll meet in the next world. But I sincerely believe you understand. It's better for all of us. The doctor, an old professor with funny glasses, entered the room. His robe was a little too small for him, so he didn't button it up, but let his considerable belly twitch as he walked. Are you ready? The doctor asked, looking at Konstantin and Diana over his glasses. Have you had time to say goodbye? Yes. Konstantin nodded and hugged Diane. Yes. Tears came out of the girl's eyes. I'm sorry. It's all right. You are doing the right thing. The doctor nodded, turned to the machines and suddenly froze. What is it? Konstantin noticed the doctor's slowness. It's unbelievable. whispered the professor. 12 minutes ago there was brain activity. What does it mean? Diane's hands went cold. She all tensed up. It means that the patient's brain is not dead. It is just like in deep anabiosis, like frogs in winter. Unbelievable. He's alive. Diana couldn't help it and she turned to shouting, "He's alive," nodded the professor. The girl could not withstand the strain and fainted right in the arms of Constantine. When she woke up, a man was sitting next to her, and an amused professor in glasses was shining a flashlight in her eyes. "Okay, fine," he exclaimed in satisfaction. "Well, I don't know how it happened, but there was activity again a minute ago. I can tell he's slowly coming around. We'll increase the therapy. He may wake up soon enough." Diane's eyes began to roll again, but she was able to maintain consciousness. "I don't believe. I almost." "Okay, what didn't happen?" "Didn't happen," the doctor interrupted her firmly. "Now I'm going to have to ask you both to leave the room. We're moving the patient to the ICU. His chances of waking up there will increase dramatically. We'll keep you informed." The last words were addressed to Diane. "Okay, thank you," answered Constantine for her. Diana couldn't make sense of it all. She was guided by Constantine, who remained surprisingly calm. And the girl's memory flew back to the episode of intimacy with Constantine, and even though after that time they no longer slept together, but the kissing, the courtship, the hugging, it was all there. What about Sergei now? Here you go. Unplug him from the machines. The man's alive. Sergei is alive. Diana rejoiced at the thought, but immediately fell into the abyss of despair, remembering her intimacy with her husband's best friend. And now what to do? There is hope that Sergei will wake up. What to do with Constantine? "I bet your head is spinning," the man exhaled, getting behind the wheel, but not in a hurry to move. "And you're not?" "Yes," the man said quietly. "You were great for waiting so long, for getting him the best doctors, for keeping him alive, for not listening to anyone. It's a miracle. There's no other way to put it." "Yeah, I didn't listen." Diana grinned sadly. "I was going to kill my husband half an hour ago, and you said I was doing the right thing." "Diana, I wasn't the only one who said that," said Constantine reasonably. Yes, sorry," sighed the girl. "It's crazy. 5 years." "Yes." He paused for a while. "We should drink to that." "Let's go." "Kostya, if you think that." "I don't think anything," Constantine interrupted her. "I just want to drink to my friend's health." They silently drove to the bar, made a few toasts, and then Constantine called a cab for Diana. He wanted to stay longer himself. Diana drove home, not for a moment stopping to think about Sergei. Constantine also thought of Sergei. He hadn't woken up yet, of course, but the doctor said that the odds were now up sharply from 0. What was the reason for that? I wonder, was it not his and Diana's words? Or maybe it was his words? Constantine thought about the future. Diana had already agreed to divorce Sergei, then agreed to let him go. Constantine was very close to making the girl his own. What about now? He is, of course, glad that his friend is alive. But Diana. Constantine drank shot after shot and, in the end, went home without any thoughts, firmly drowning them out with alcohol. The doctor's predictions were confirmed. Sergei woke up 3 days later. While he was recovering, no one was allowed to see him, but his wife nevertheless received a call. Upon hearing the news, Diana fainted again. She herself did not know whether it was from joy or horror. It was scary to imagine what Sergei would experience when he found out about Constantine. Nevertheless, her heart was literally bursting with the emotions she was experiencing. Joy, happiness, relief, fear, guilt, betrayal. She could not make sense of herself. Diana still loved Sergei, but over these 5 years, she had become a completely different person. And Constantine was there for her. But to Sergei she swore her eternal love. Not to Constantine. The girl did not know what to do. She wanted to as quickly as possible to visit her husband awake and at the same time to avoid this meeting and difficult conversation. And in general, is it worth talking about it? She had had intimacy once in 5 years of agonizing waiting. Constantine patiently waited, did not rush her. All his signs of attention. Diana did not know how to relate to them. She passively accepted them, but she thought she was a widow at heart. She thought that Sergei's eventual death was only a matter of time, and at the same time, she hoped that he would come to his senses. There, her hopes had come true, so why was she so afraid to pretend it hadn't happened? It wasn't right. Sergei deserves to know the truth, and then let him make his own decision. In any case, Diana would understand him. The day came when Sergei was transferred to the general ward. He was quickly gaining strength thanks to doctors, massage therapists, and physical therapists. He felt almost no effects of such a long coma. For a long time Sergei could not believe that 5 years had passed since he had fallen into a coma. Even more incredible to him was the fact that all this time his young wife came to him every day and did not leave his bed for long periods. He looked forward to Diana's visit to thank her for everything, for her faith, for her care, for her devotion. Diane stood at the door of his room with a huge bouquet of flowers. She didn't know if she should give a man flowers, but it seemed to be the custom. And who was she to change tradition? "Okay, stop standing there," silently scolded herself. She sighed and looked at the door of her ward. "If you want, I can go first," suggested Constantine. "No." She shook her head. "I want him to see me first." "All right. Have you thought about what you say to him?" Constantine asked an anxious question which Diana tried with all her might to avoid. "No." She closed her eyes. "The truth, I suppose. We can hide our relationship. Moreover, the circumstances are—" The man hesitated. "What circumstances?" Diana asked with a challenge. "The circumstances of my husband's death." "Well, he's alive, you see." "Diana, you know exactly what I mean. He was in a prolonged coma. There was no hope. Everyone knew that." He sighed. "And who will you choose?" the man asked quietly. "Kostya." "He is my husband," said Diana. "And I betrayed him twice. The first time, when I forced him into this position, and the second time, when I gave in to your advances. I simply have no right to deceive him." "I understand." Constantine nodded and clenched his jaw. He was expecting something like this. Diana had always loved Sergei and only him. "Then go." "Yes." The girl pushed the door open and found herself in the room. Sergei turned at the sound of the lock opening and saw Diana, his beloved wife. 5 years of experience had not passed without a trace for her, but she was so beautiful. The girl's lips trembled, tears immediately flowed from her eyes, her legs buckled, but she still walked to her husband's bed. "Sergei." She could only utter "Diane." Sergei answered and smiled. "Thank you." He hugged his wife and didn't let go for a long time. He wanted to show his gratitude, and her heart was tormented by 1,000 feelings. But now the main thing was that Sergei was alive. He was talking to her after so many years of silence. Diane cried non-stop, hugging her husband. "Well, honey, it's all over now," Sergei said with a smile. "Yes," she smiled, too, and wiped away her tears. I waited so long for you." "I'm sorry," he sighed. "I remember how it all happened. I was such a fool. I was jealous of you, of every Pole, of all the people. And you waited 5 years for me. Oh, God, I can't do this." Diana pulled away slightly and started rummaging through her purse for a handkerchief. While she mouthed off the conversation with actions, her mind raced feverishly through her head. She must say, she must, she simply must. What if it would be such a blow to him that he would slip back into a coma? "Darling, what's the matter?" The smile on Sergei's lips faded. "How can you not? I have to confess something to you, but I'm so afraid." Diana sobbed. "I'm afraid you'll leave me alone again." "I'll never leave you alone again." "What's the matter?" While you were in a coma, Serge, I thought there was no hope," Diana began. "I really went to see you every day. And after a year of ineffective therapy I was first told to think about taking you off life support. I threw a tantrum at the time and told them they would treat you as long as I could pay for it. I brought in every specialist I could find. But then they said it was no use. So I got drunk and went to your office to sit in your chair and remember you. Maybe even imagine for a second that you were me, and we were alive. That day." She was silent, sighing heavily a couple of times. Sergei listened to her without interrupting. "That day Constantine stayed after work. He had some project to finish, and it happened. It was one time, I swear. Then he started wooing me, and Sergei, I loved you, but you were still in a coma. I didn't know what to do. We didn't sleep anymore. But I let him take care of me, and I'm very guilty. I understand if you don't want to see either of us anymore. I'll go away and never be reminded of myself. But the day the doctor said there was brain activity, I was going to do it that day. Well, the machines. She sighed helplessly and waved her hand. What a load of nonsense I'm talking. I'll help you get your strength. And then you can do as you please. I can't live with this deception. There was silence in the ward. Sergei looked at Diane, and she averted her eyes and looked somewhere in the corner. She was terribly ashamed. She had no doubt that if the situation had developed differently, Sergei would not have thought about another woman. So, Sergei exhaled. And how long had I been dead at that point? 3 years, Diana answered quietly. 3 years, then. Sergei thought. He had a lot on his mind. Say something, Diana pleaded after a few minutes of silence. She thought that Sergei would react more emotionally, but he seemed to just drift off into himself. Diane, I honestly understand you both, Sergei said suddenly. 3 years, everyone says there's no hope. Of course you have to move on with your life, but then why didn't you just turn me off? I don't know. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I hoped that you would wake up. Then why did you sleep with Kostya? Sergei asked sharply. I do not know. Diane burst into tears. I need to think. The man sighed. I'm sorry. I can't say right away that it's over or that it's okay. Give me time. Diana nodded and left the room. She didn't notice anything around her. Ordered herself a cab and drove home. Nor did she see that Konstantin had followed her into the room. Did she tell you? Konstantin asked. Yes, replied Sergei. What do you think? First, I do not even want to consider you an acquaintance. And about her, I do not know, admitted Sergei. I see, sighed Konstantin. Yes, I should have told you a long time ago that I also like Diana. Maybe we could have sorted it out like men. Look. Don't blame her. She was in a terrible state, drunk, all wet from the rain, blaming herself for everything, talking only about you. I wanted to tell her that there was still me, that I loved her too. So I said. She wasn't happy, but she didn't have the strength to resist. That was our relationship, if you can call it that. She's young, Sergei. She's a widow at 23. You know. Why didn't you tell her to turn me off? I didn't want to. Konstantin shrugged his shoulders. You're my dear friend. Yeah, you cannot think of more expensive. Sergei, 3 years, Konstantin reminded me. I just wanted to take care of her and not let her drink on such a grief or worse. Sergei thought about Diana's feelings for the first time. And really, what would he himself have done in her place? In general, get well when you're ready. I'll bring you up to speed on the job. And Diana? Sergei asked, when Konstantin was already standing in the doorway. And Diane loves only you, grinned Konstantin bitterly. After 6 months of rehabilitation, Sergei came home. Diana was still living in their shared apartment. The spouses tried not to talk about Diana's infidelity anymore. They decided to concentrate all their efforts on recovery. But now that Sergei was home, the topic couldn't help but come up. What have you decided? Diane asked. Who do you love? Sergei answered a question with a question. Think very carefully. I don't have to think. Diane shook her head. That's why I'll do whatever you want. Then, Sergei sighed. I'm getting a second life. Damn it. We're getting to know each other again. And with Kostya, too. You don't have to worry about what happened before me. Let's forget about it. Sergei. Diana blinked in surprise. This was clearly not the answer she was expecting. Are you serious? Sure I am. Sergei grinned and finally kissed his wife passionately. I'm almost 6 years without drinking wine. Madam, are you free tonight? I want to take you to a restaurant for a date. I have already been asked by a splendid gentleman, smirked Diana. Who's that? Sergei raised an eyebrow. You, she laughed. The relationships between the spouses began to improve. Konstantin realized that Diana would never love anyone as much as Sergei and accepted that. They managed to remain friends. Thank you for watching. If you liked my video, click like and subscribe to the channel. See you in new stories. Bye.